All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Get ready. We're going to be jumping right back into some TryHackMe. Today, we're doing identity and access management. I am what I am. That's all I'm going to be. So, identity and access management. This is a key part of cybersecurity, being able to identify and manage who has access to what. This determines different kind of security levels. This determines different kind of roles and responsibilities. We covered a little bit of this previously with some key aspects with the CIA and the other 3 letters we've talked about before. But I figure it's been long enough. We should jump right back into some of these TryHackMe rooms. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Who are you? I'm Lucas. Prove it. Here's some ID. That looks like a fake to me. All right, you're an authorized user. Don't break anything. We got cameras everywhere. So have you ever thought about the following questions? How can we uniquely identify different users in a system? How can a user prove who they are to that system? How can we help prevent an attacker from pretending to be a legitimate user? And how can we decide what a user should access? How do we enforce such a decision? How can we know what a user is doing after logging in so that we can hold them accountable for their actions? Man, I hope everyone's caffeinated and hydrated because this is going to be an interesting section. So, in this room, we answer the questions and others. If you're curious, the answers to the questions lie in the following concepts and processes: identification, authentication, strong passwords, and multi-factor authentication. I'm sure a lot of Twitch users are familiar with that one. Authorization. Okay. And access control. Logging and auditing. This room introduces the reader to the key concepts related to managing identities and authorizations. Wow, struggling today. It starts with identification and authentication and proceeds to accountability before it concludes with access control models. Prereq. Although this room has no strict prerequisition, we recommend that you first finish security principles. We did that already. All right, learning objectives. Single sign-on. This is key. You'll see this all over the internet. That's that, can I sign in with Google? Access control models, accountability, that's probably going to be logging. Authorization, that's going to be maybe some group policy. Authentication, probably talking about passwords and multi-factor. And identification. I'm not 100% sure, so let's go ahead and... What is the name of the room recommended to finish? Security principles. They're not our pals. Sweet. So, the IAAA model. Identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability. These are the 4 pillars of information security. Each of these elements plays an essential role in ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive information and resources. Will we keep going? Everyone's following along. We still got... All right, good. Let's jump right back in. So we have identification, which leads to authentication, which leads to authorization, which leads to accountability. So, in the IAAA model, it stands for, I just read that. The 4 stages of the model are identification, process of verifying who the user is, authentication, process of ensuring that the user is who they claim to be, authorization, determines what that user is allowed to access, accountability, tracks the user's activity to ensure they're responsible for their actions. So after the user gets into the system, it is essential to have a mechanism to hold them responsible and accountable for their actions. Authorization, in other words, they will be authorized to carry out specific operations. Okay, so like what programs are you able to access or what files can you touch? Authentication, in other words, this step is confirming that the claimed identity is who they are. All right, I think we're good. You're granted access to read and send an email. What is the name of this process? Access to read and send email. You're basic. Let's go with authorization. Got it. Process would require you to enter your username. It's either identification or authentication. Let's try identification first. Nice. Although you have write access, you should only make changes if necessary for the task. What process is required to enforce this policy? That's going to be accountability. Nice. All right, on to the next section. All right, I don't know what happened there. Okay. Identification is how a user or process or system claims a specific identity. Let's consider a couple of examples from everyday life. Let's say you were invited to a party and started socializing. When someone asks you, what's your name? And most likely, you would tell them your real name. After all, you are there to have a good time and make some new friends. Wait a minute, you can make a name or pick something from your favorite movie or answer something like Thomas Anderson. Either way, the other person would not ask for your ID to prove your identity. It is just a socializing event, not an accessing a high security area. I've always wanted to do that, just go to a party where I don't know anybody and just make up an entire fake persona. That always seemed like fun. I have done that once before. Very, there was a cybersecurity party, so I'm surprised no one really called me up on it. But let's keep going. Identification can be through username. Username can be various forms. For instance, Thomas Anderson might be T Anderson, Thomas A, Thomas 01, TA 001, or even Neo. It all depends on the organization and the platform. Identification can also be achieved through numeric numbers, such as national ID, student ID, passport, mobile phone. Any number unique to the user might be used for identification. Many websites ask for a user's email address for registration because the user's email is guaranteed to be unique. This spares the user from trying to find a unique username and remembering it. All right. Let's consider another example outside computers. You start going to a gym and the receptionist asks you for your name. You might reply with the name from your favorite movie. However, the receptionist can ask you for ID card at this time. Why would they do that? To confirm you are who you're claiming to be. That's authentication, baby. I mean, unless you have your buddy's gym pass and you're just using that to borrow some time at the gym. But you'll need your buddy's pass to confirm that. And hopefully they don't have any identification on it, like, your picture, your name, some other third thing. So without proper authentication, severe damage can be incurred. Consider the case someone claiming a fake identity and taking a loan from the bank. In the IT world, without authentication, anyone can access your email if they knew your email address. Most systems cannot function properly without proper authentication. So I think there was even an exploit over the weekend with Next.js where you could quite literally go around the whole authentication process and access things like behind a paywall. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure. If anyone wants to drop that in chat, let me know. But all right. Which of the following cannot be used for identification? Email, year of birth, probably year of birth. There's a lot of people born every year. Which of the following cannot be used for identification? Landline phone number, street number, health insurance card number, student ID number. Probably street number. There we go. Piece of cake. Just cruising through this one. Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user or system. Let's go back to our gym example. The receptionist at a gym only allows subscribed members. How is this achieved in the analog world? They can ask you for your gym membership card, assuming the gym provides one for each subscriber. You should have a gym membership card with your photo and relevant gym subscription details. The receptionist can confirm the identity by checking the card, and the authentication problem is solved. Unless someone finds a way to counterfeit the card, but that's another problem. Authentication and identification are core components of any information system and network. It is essential to understand the difference between authentication and identification. During identification, the user claims a specific identity in a respective setting. Authentication is providing the identity of the user or system or process. The process is usually accomplished through one of the following ways: something you know, something you have, and something you are. You'll see this pop up quite a lot. So something you know can be like a password. Something you have can be, a multi-factor authentication app or phone. And something you are. I don't know, some physical aspect of you. So like being able to provide a photo or something like that. All right. 2 more methods are used, although to a lesser degree. Something you are logical physical location, and something you do, your behavior. So this physical location could be something like, uh, you know, your home IP address. Are you logging in at the same place? This is how Netflix is really locking down people's accounts. Uh, hey, you were in the United States yesterday. How are you in Germany today? But let's continue. Let's discuss each of the three main authentication mechanisms. Something you know, like I said, password, passphrases, a PIN number. Most mobile phones are automatically locked within minutes of inactivity and depends on the original configuration. The user can unlock them by providing the correct PIN, password, or pattern. I think we all know that. Basic login system. Something you have. So this refers to a physical object. So you can use what's called a YubiKey. There we go. And I guess there's a couple other things. So basically, it's called like a hardware token, and this helps enhance two-factor. So let's see what other examples it says. One way you can send a code via SMS. You can call that number and communicate the code. Reading SMS within a few minutes or receiving a call on that number would prove that you have this phone number. Interesting, because I think there's a few ways that you can actually spoof that nowadays. But that's why hardware security keys are pretty handy. You know, you'll always have it on you. It's on your keys. It's with your person. So using these, it'll plug in. You can hit a button and it will authenticate yourself. Similar to like how Apple has that fingerprint reader to prove who you are. iCloud keychain, I think it's called. Something you are. Something you are refers to biometric readers. Okay, there we go. That's the Apple fingerprint reader. Facial recognition, retina scanners, voice recognition. That's interesting. I haven't heard anyone use that, but let's continue. So, you have most likely experienced authentication using fingerprint reader when you try to unlock your phone. Many mobile phones use that as authentication. Fingerprint while keeping the password and PIN as a backup option in case the fingerprint fails. You ever fail a few times because your thumb's just a little too wet or oily, and then you have to put in your PIN? So it uses it as a backup. And I'd be cautious about voice recognition now since AI is getting so good that it can copy people's tones and mannerisms. So we have multi-factor authentication, MFA. This refers to one or more of the following above mechanisms, something you are, have, or know. The purpose is to have additional security in case one of the authentication mechanisms gets compromised. If you want to use your bank's ATM, you insert the card and then you type in your PIN. The procedure is one of the earliest two-factor authentication examples. The apparent utility is that it is not enough for an attacker to get a hold of your card, as they would also need to know your PIN code. Many of the home safes available today use two-factor authentication without necessarily marketing it. They require the owner to insert a card and enter the correct PIN to open the safe. To initiate two-factor requires two authentication mechanisms, and it falls under the more general MFA, which requires two or more authentication factors. This requirement can significantly improve security to protect against various attacks, such as those that take advantage of weak passwords. All right, everyone following so far? So let's answer the following questions using something you know, something you have, something you are, and two-factor authentication. So when you want to check your email, you enter your username and password. What kind of authentication are we providing? Bueller? Anybody? Want to take a stab at it? This would be something you know. Piece of cake. So, your bank lets you finish most of your banking operations using its app. You can log into your banking app by providing username and password, then entering a code received via SMS. What kind of authentication is the bank using? That's two-factor, baby. It's hoping that you know your username, password, and you got your phone on you. Your new landline phone, do people still have that? Your new landline phone number at home allows callers to leave a message when the call is not picked up. You can call your home number and enter a secret number to listen to the recorded messages. What kind of authentication is being used here? That's just something you know. All right. I I don't even think I know anybody with a landline anymore. You have just started working at an advanced research center. You learned that you need to swipe your card and enter a 4-digit PIN whenever you want to use the elevator. Under which group does this authentication fall? So you need the card and your PIN. So that's two-factor. Pretty straightforward. Two things you know. Well, one thing you know, one thing you got. Once authenticated, a user should be granted proper level of access. Authorization specifies that the authenticated user should be allowed to access what the allowed what the authenticated user should be allowed to access and do. Returning to our gym example, we expect a gym paid member to be authorized to access any training equipment during the set business hours. The subscriber cannot borrow and take the treadmill home for a month. A gym is not a library. Access control mechanisms would ensure that the proper authorizations is enforced. If the gym has adequate access control mechanisms, someone will spot you struggling to carry the treadmill and take it out. All right, let's consider a non technical example again. Linda reserved a room at a hotel for 1 week. With this reservation, Linda should be authorized to access her hotel room, among other public facilities, throughout her stay. Although she is allowed to access her assigned guest room, she is not allowed to access other guest rooms, for instance. How can this be enforced? Again, authorization is enforced by access control mechanisms. In the hotel, Linda is given a key that only opens her room. Consequently, access control is enforced via locks and keys. More sophisticated hotel might use smart keys and electronic card readers to unlock the room doors. How old is this? Either way, there is a mechanism that would enforce authorization. Let's consider a technical example. As part of the sales team, Edward should be able to access all the files related to sales that are necessary to carry out his work efficiently and effectively. There is no need for a sales team to have access to documents pertaining to human resources and accounting, for example. In this case, access controls can be enforced by setting proper access permissions on the company files and knowledge base. Now, that's a very important rule. The thing is, a lot of people, a lot of companies and corporations don't have proper access mechanisms, or sorry, authorization mechanisms. That's why, you might see an example about how one cashier at a major hardware store plugged in a USB, and that USB was able to access every sale data that happened during that day. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. That means that the authorization of that one checkout is able to access every other checkout. So you can see how a small little detail can just blow up. So, new policy states that the secretary should be able to send an email on the manager's behalf. What is this policy dictating? Hmm, let's see. So sending it on their behalf, not accessing their email. I think we want to go with authorization. Boom, boom, baby. You shared a document with your colleagues and gave them to view permissions so they would read it without making changes. What would ensure your file won't be modified? That would be access control, right? Man, this is just going to be a clean sweep today. I feel it in my bones. The hotel management decided that the cleaning staff needed access to all the hotel rooms to do their work. What phase is this decision part of? Needing access to all the rooms? Probably access control. No? Authorization. Oh, they're authorized to access all the rooms. Of course, I jinxed myself right at the end there. All right. Let me just check. Get some background music for everybody. Good. All right. Next section. Accountability and logging. Accountability ensures that the users are accountable for their actions and they perform on the system. In other words, after authenticating their identity and getting authorized access to a system, they can be held responsible for their actions. Accountability is possible if we have auditing capabilities, which usually require proper logging functionality. Logging is so important when dealing with these systems. You need to be able to find out who did what, when, and how. This helps during and after an attack. So, for example, if Susie B in HR uses the same password for everything, their password gets leaked somewhere else. Someone's able to access her account at the corporation and then do things as Susie. With proper logging and accountability, we can find out that it was Susie's account that was compromised. We can then quickly reset her password or stop her access before whatever attacker gets too far or too into the weeds. Make sense? All right. So let's start with the gym example. Now that you're a regular here, the receptionist recognizes you and does not ask you to show your membership card. It's like you're always logged in at the gym. You observe that everyone with access to the gym abides by certain rules. For instance, no one breaks the wall mirror if they're not satisfied with their progress speed. All right. If they do that, they have their membership revoked and pay for all the damages. In other words, everyone is accountable for their actions. This model makes it convenient for everyone to exercise safely. All right, a more technical example. There we go. A bank teller. So, you have an employee that can view and conduct various transactions on a client's account. How can we ensure that a rogue employee does not abuse such authorization? We need to log all the transactions and relevant details securely. We should be able to audit all conducted transactions and review what they did and who did what. So, without such ability, we can neither rely on nor trust a system. All right. Critical aspect of accountability is logging. Logging is the process of recording events that occur within a system. Process includes users' actions, system events, and errors. This is all that Windows logging. Whenever you're logged into your computer, it creates an event. Those events are stored somewhere within Windows. With a comprehensive logging system in place, an organization can trace the actions of any user, identify any anomalies or unauthorized access. Like we talked about before, someone from sales shouldn't have access to HR. So, logging can also help an organization detect and respond to security incidents. We can find out what is, typical and be able to use that information to sort of set like a baseline of what that user does, what they access from a day-to-day. If somebody's in the same directory, updating the same file, that's their day-to-day thing, great. What happens when they suddenly try to access the database that holds all the money? That seems weird. They probably shouldn't do that. Somebody should know that immediately. All right, let's skip down to log forwarding. This is the process of sending log data from one system to another. This process often aggregates log data from multiple sources into a central location for more accessible analysis and management. Log forwarding can also be used to send log data to a cloud-based service or storage for analysis. So if you have a pretty wide company, system, whatever, you want to be able to pull all that information together at once and review it, in its entirety. Makes sense. If somebody all the way from the left branch breaks in, you need to be able to find that from central. Logging and SIEM. So, security, information, and event management, SIEM, is technology that aggregates log data from multiple sources and analyzes it for signs of security threats. These solutions can help organizations identify anomalies, detect potential security incidents, and provide alerts to security teams. So a lot of places, they'll either, pay for this SIEM technology, or they'll make it in-house. Basically, it just helps pull all the logs together and have certain rules for certain users, for certain accounts, for certain days, blah, 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 blah. Basically, it's a way, how can we go through so much information all at once? Sounds good? All right. I think we can move on to the next part. All right, chat, we're halfway there. On to identity management. So, identity management includes all the necessary policies and technologies for identification, authentication, and authorization. Identity management aims to ensure that authorized people have access to the assets and resources needed for their work, while unauthorized people are denied. Identity management requires that each user or device is assigned a digital identity. Identity management helps organizations protect sensitive data and maintain compliance and regulations. So very important to make sure to know who's who has right access. If you might have seen that one guy on Twitter who ended up racking, I think it was like over $100,000 for his AI Amazon web-based service. He didn't have proper identity management. So I think what ended up happening was that guy leaked one of his API keys because he was just streaming how he was building this. Other people saw his API key and decided to use it themselves. So they were able to access his stuff without having to pay him, and really just racked up his bill, sadly. But that's why we're going over this now. Identity management is crucial. So some sources refer to identity management and identity and access management interchangeably. Other sources consider identity management to be more focused on security issues related to user identity, such as authentication and permissions. They state that identity management is concerned with managing the attributes and permissions of users, devices, and groups, while identity access and management is more concerned with evaluating the attributes and permissions and granting or denying access according to company policy. Okay, so what that mouthful was is people like to separate identity management and identity and access management. saying that identity and access management is how we can grant or deny access to certain stuff based on company policy. Whereas identity management is more about the permissions and attributes of the users, devices, and groups. Hope that makes sense. So identity management is an essential component of cybersecurity, refers to the process of managing and controlling digital identities. It involves the management of user identities, their authentication and authorization, and access control. The main goal of identity management is to ensure that only authorized individuals have access to specific resources and information. Identity management systems are used to manage user identities across an organization's network. So, identity management systems use centralized databases to store user identities and access rights. They can provide functionalities to manage and monitor user access to resource. Identity management systems generally include features such as user provisioning, authentication, and authorization. User provisioning refers to the process of creating and managing user accounts, while authentication and authorization refer to verifying the identity of the user and granting access to specific resources. Man, this is long in the tooth. So identity and access management. Identity access management is more comprehensive concept than IAM. It encompasses all the processes and technologies to manage and secure digital identities and access rights. IAM systems include a variety of functions such as user provisioning, access control, identity governance, and compliance management. IAM systems ensure that only authorized users have access to specific resources and data, that their access is monitored and controlled. IAM systems provide comprehensive solutions to manage and secure access resources in an organization. They integrate with multiple systems and applications, providing a centralized view of users' identities and access rights. So IAM, usually if you go into like AWS and see what, you can create more users and other people. So you can have like top level admin, he deals with everything. You can have one person that's just deals with the billing and credit. One guy that just has read-write access to files on the server. And you can even narrow that down to specific directories and files and applications on that server. Make sense? You seem like pretty basic questions. So we have identity management. Got it. And you have identity and access management. I'll be honest, I mainly use those pretty interchangeably. So, this task will cover the example attacks against naive authentication protocols. The purpose is to give an idea of the importance of using existing and tested protocols instead of creating a protocol and using it without rigorous peer testing. So what you see a lot of times is people get confused between like base 64 encoding and hashing, like we covered in our previous TryHackMe. Base 64 is easily reversible. Hashing is going to be a little more difficult. So, let's say that you belong to a horse riding club. The club reserves a local restaurant for weekly meetings. You can chat about your adventures while enjoying your favorite plate. The guard at the door does not know all the club members, so you devise an authentication scheme to allow the guard to decide whether to open the door. One of the most basic identities one would think to use as a common secret phrase. So anyone who wants to enter needs to say the secret phrase. No one will be granted entry unless they say 7 horses when asked how many. This authentication mechanism works perfectly fine until an attacker standing nearby eavesdrops and learns your new passphrase. Now they gain access to your private event as if they are one of you. It would help if you had something more sophisticated. Funny enough, this is how I got into one of the speakeasies um, in my local town. Being able to just stay by the side door, out of view. The passphrase changed each day, so you had to know somebody that was able to get reservations to get the word out. But just by being around the corner, I was able to eavesdrop and get in myself. So you can plan 10 questions with 10 different secret answers instead of just one question and one answer. However, an attacker lingering close enough will eventually learn all of them. Using a secure authentication mechanism without restoring the cryptography can be almost impossible. Luckily, for the door guard scenario, it is easy to spot any suspicious persons idling around. Otherwise, your whole gathering would be compromised. Why they wouldn't just have a list, I don't know. But having a list of people and having people show their government IDs would be enough to authenticate proper people to go in. You're on the list and you have an ID. So, authentication in the digital world. The situation on a network is even more challenging to secure. If the user sends their username and password in clear text, anyone capturing the traffic on that network can learn the username and password. Funny enough, that's how back in high school I used to be able to get into other people's Facebook. You were able to just grab the traffic and send it back yourself. So how can we prevent them from learning the login credentials? The server and the user can agree on a fixed secret key. Secret key, we were talking about that last time. Instead of sending the password in a clear text, the user encrypts it using the selected secret key. Whenever the user wants to log in, they send their username and password encrypted with the assigned secret key. Now the attacker should never be able to learn the password, right? Unfortunately, although they won't be able to know the password, they can still authenticate. This attack is shown in the figure below. So while they have the secret key and the hacker doesn't know what their password is, they do know what the encrypted password is. So they're able to just relay what that password is, or replay. Although the attacker does not know the password, they can authenticate by replaying the same response. This is why you have rolling codes and rolling encryption, being able to constantly change what that encrypted password is going to be. This is also why you have tokens that expire and different ways to quickly navigate around this. So let's get down to the question. Making the challenge response unique. An encrypted password that is always the same value is easy to circumvent. We need some mechanism to ensure that the response won't be reused repeatedly. One approach would be to use the current time and date as part of the response. In other words, the user would send an encryption of the current time and date along with the password. Although this requires both parties to synchronize their clocks, ensures that the response is only valid for a brief time, usually milliseconds. This task aims to shed some light on some of the challenges related to the authentication and authentication protocols. Many other vulnerabilities can make their way into authentication protocols, however, is beyond the scope of this room. I think what we're trying to hint at there is there are time-based attacks that you can do. So if you can quickly grab the current date and time along with the password and send it along with them, like milliseconds with them, you'll be able to authenticate as well, circumventing this little technique. So the attacker could authenticate. We're probably going to use replay attack. Easy. How many more we got? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 more sections to go, chat. Let's keep it rolling. Oh boy. So system controls access to various resources based on chosen model. Some of the common access control models are discretionary access control, role-based access control, mandatory access control, and that's it. So DAC, discretionary access control, when sharing files or folders with a friend and colleague, when using DAC, the resource the owner will explicitly add users with the proper permissions. So you have to specifically grant access. Role-based access, very intuitive approach. Each user has one or more role or functional positions. Furthermore, they are authorized to access different resources based on their role. You can think of this sort of like some of the roles in Discord. If you're in a server and you want access to the Minecraft room, you have to have that role attached to your account. Then you can access that room. Mandatory access control. An operating system using mandatory access control would prioritize security and significantly limit users' abilities. Such systems are used for specific purposes or to handle highly classified data. Consequently, users do not need to carry out tasks beyond the strictly necessary. In other words, users won't be able to install new software or change file permissions. So if you're in high school and they have the systems locked down so you can't install anything, this would be an example of a mandatory access control. Any student who has a student account isn't able to install things. AppArmor gives the ability to have Mac on Linux distributions. It's already shipped with various Linux distros such as Debian and Ubuntu. SE Linux project provides flexible Mac for Linux users. It is standard for several distros, Red Hat and Fedora. Answer following 1, 2, 3, DAC, Rebac, and Mac. All right. We're sharing a document via network share, giving edit permissions only to the accounting department. What example of access control is this? What was Rebac? Role-based. I think that's the one we want, because only the accounting department. Whoop whoop, we got it, baby. You published a post on social media platform and made it only visible to 3 of your 200 friends. What kind of access control did you use? We're gonna go with DAC. Got it. Piece of cake. All right, single sign-on. This is the interesting stuff. So, users need to access various sources to carry out daily work routines. For example, they would have to access their emails, share files, printers, and other things. Accessing these resources requires the user to have login credentials for successful authentication. The number of different user names and passwords makes it quite challenging, especially if the users are rightfully not reusing the same password across multiple systems. Single sign-on, SSO, tackles this problem. Instead of a user having to remember multiple usernames and passwords, they only have to remember a single set of logon credentials. They can authenticate themselves to one system, granting access to other systems necessary for their work. So I think I mentioned this before. So if you see something that you're trying to log into and it says, use your Google account, use your Twitter account, use your Facebook account, that's a great example of single sign-on. Being able to leverage an account you already have with a password and username you already know. And what is happening is in the background is you are authenticating to Google or Facebook, who then authenticates with whatever server you're signing up for. And then they're allowed to communicate. That then gives you access to that resource. Traditionally, a user must create several passwords, such as a password to log into their computer, another one to check the email, third one to access the file share. Recalling the number of passwords can be cumbersome, especially since, ideally speaking, password should not be reused. So this is important concept you can think of when people have too many passwords. People are lazy. Bottom line, people are lazy. So what they're going to want to do is use the same username and same password for everything. So if they have the same username and password for everything, that means all the attacker needs is that username and password to get access to everything. Make sense? All right. So SSO allows an organization to authenticate once and then give them access for what they need for their day-to-day. They have one strong password, expecting the user to remember that single password. Easier multi-factor authentication. So adding MFA to every different service, pain in the butt, but with single sign-on, you only need it for that initial one. Simpler support. Support requests like password reset become more straightforward as they are now confined to a single account. So you don't need to go around to each server and reset their password. Efficiency, user does not need to log in every time, so it doesn't take them a whole, couple of minutes to remember what was that password. What does SSO stand for? Single sign on. All right, I spelled sign on wrong. Does SSO simplify multi-factor authentication? Yeah, dude. Is it true that single sign-on can be cumbersome, as it requires a user to remember input of different passwords? Nay. Does single sign-on allow users to access various services after signing in once? Yeah. This is such a weird way to say yes or no. Does the user need to create and remember a single password when using single sign-on? Yeah. There we go. Now we can get into the interesting scenarios. All right. It is worth repeating that we need to have proper processes in place to help protect the security of data, systems, and networks. Expressing this in technical terms, protecting the security of a system, for example, means protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that system. There's that CIA we're always looking out for. And part of the proper processes required, including appropriate identification, authentication, authorization, access control, accountability, and logging, among others. Nothing but mouthfuls here. Inadequately in any one process results in the weakening of the security of respective systems. Securing one process won't replace securing the other processes. All right, let's see if we can get this flag. All right, we have 45 seconds to answer all the questions. 3 attempts, 2 hints. Each correct answer gives us 10 more seconds. All right. So I've enrolled his fingerprint. Yoshiru unlocks his phone by drawing a pattern. What does this phone lock allow? We're going to go with authentication. After a lengthy meeting between different concerned departments, the newly decided policy is to grant management personnel read-only access to the accounting data. That would be access. Oh, no. Authorization. There we go. Always forgetting strong passwords, Thomas decides to use a passphrase that invokes imagination. 11 white horses. What does a passphrase help with? I would say authentication. There we go. After finishing her Linux course, Juliana now knows that on Linux systems, the file password is readable to readable by everyone, unlike the file shadow as shown by a simple 1s-l, ls-l. For example, the read-write root, all right, that's on the password file, and read root shadow. You have one attempt remaining. What do you call this restriction imposed by the operating system? Access control. All right. Thomas checks his computer logs regularly. He comes across the following. Okay. Unlocked login keyring, but he was on vacation that day, so it must be intruder. What makes this detection possible? Login. Juliana notices that her smartphone was blinking as a new message had arrived. To unlock the phone, she used a fingerprint. Was this authenticated? Juliana called the IT department. The support panel asked for her name, and she replied, Juliana just. What is that? It's just identifying herself. No password, no nothing. Shiru locked his computer and went to the cafeteria for lunch. But Yoshiru had been doing numerous blue team rooms recently. Therefore, when he came back, he checked the invalid login attempts that took place while he was away. He found Mayu user check password. Password check failed for the user. He knows that someone tried logging into his account but failed. What makes this possible? Logging. Yoshiru decided to beef up his security skills. He opened up the web browser, logged into TryHackMe username. In the username or email field, he writes this. What is this? Identification. Come on, last one. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. To withdraw the money from the ATM bank, Yoshiru must insert his credit card into the ATM and enter his PIN. Yoshiru wants to ensure that no one can access his PIN, so he comes up with a completely random. What is this? Authentication. Whoa! Right under the buzzer. What was that, 5 seconds left? TryHackMe access control. Submit. Boom, boom, baby. Another one down. Thank God. 5 seconds. All right, let's conclude. So in this room, we covered the different processes from identification to logging. We also discussed access control modules, SSO standards related to authentication and authorization. Following this room, we recommend one of the following in the second module of this path. Governance and regulation, threat modeling, risk management. Complete. Another one in the books. Let's go ahead. Governance and regulation. All right, what do you think, chat? Should we keep moving? You guys still up for another one? How long have we been up for? About an hour. Oh no, our sounds aren't working. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to fix that. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at what the next section is. You know, it's easy governance and regulation. I'm not too worried about it. Eight tasks. Explore policies and frameworks vital for regulating cybersecurity in organization. What do you think, chat? I think we can do one more. As I press on. Only 8 tasks. 636 days ago. Is that like 2 years? All right. Everyone hydrated? So, cybersecurity is a rapidly evolving landscape wherein malicious actors relentlessly endeavor to exploit vulnerabilities in high sensitive systems, often with the intent of causing severe damage, disruption, and stealing sensitive corporate data. To combat this evolving threat, a comprehensive approach to information security governance and regulation is necessary. Such an approach requires establishing robust policies and guidelines, implementing rigorous monitoring and enforcement mechanisms to ensure compliance. By adopting a proactive and strategic stance towards cybersecurity, organizations can mitigate risk posed by malicious actors and safeguard their sensitive systems against potentially catastrophic breaches. Mouthful again. I think we're just going to be talking about policies and regulations that are put in place in organizations, like good practices. So, understanding the role and importance of governance and regulation, gain an understanding of relevant international laws, regulations, policies, understanding governance, risk management, and compliance frameworks. Develop and raise your own cybersecurity posture as per international standards, including the ISO 27001, NIST 853, and much more. Basic understanding of the following 2 rooms is suggested. Web app security, principles of security. Let's get started. All right. Important terminology: governance, regulation, and compliance. Managing and directing an organization or system achieve its objective to ensure compliance with laws, regulations, and standards. Regulation is a rule of law enforced by a governing body to ensure compliance and protect against harm. Compliance is a state of adhering to the laws, regulations, and standards. Oh boy, this is going to be a fun section. Information security governance represents an organization's established structured policy methods and guidelines designed to guarantee the privacy, reliability, and accessibility of its information assets. Information security governance. Given that escalating complexity of cyber threats, security governance is continually growing. It is essential for risk management, safeguarding confidential data, unauthorized intrusion, adhering to regulations, and blah, 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 blah. So, strategy: developing and implementing a comprehensive information security strategy that aligns with the organization's overall business objectives. Policies and procedures, how somebody acts, how we're supposed to respond. Risk management, we covered that before, being able to assess what risks are possible and what can we accept and what can't we. Performance measurement, establishing metrics and key performance indicators. And compliance, ensuring that we're following laws and our best practices. Information security regulation. Oh boy. Governance and regulation are closely linked to the information security paradigm, but have distinct meanings. The information security regulation refers to legal and regulatory frameworks that govern the use and protection of information assets. Regulations are designed to protect sensitive data from unauthorized access, theft, or misuse. Compliance with regulations is typically mandatory, enforced by government agencies. Okay, so the key thing to know is just because the government and the law says you need this doesn't mean you're going to be 100% secure with just that. So here's some examples. We have the General Data Protection Regulation. We have Payment Card Industry Data and Secure Standard. That's PCI DSS. and Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PIPEDA, and many more. So this is talking about like, are you properly handling people's personal information? Are you properly handling people's credit card information? Things like that. There's certain standards and protocols that you need to follow along with those things. So some of the benefits, more robust posture, stakeholders feel more confident, regulatory compliance, better alignment with the business objectives, can help with decision making and combative advantage. Sure. Like I said, I wouldn't put too much faith in laws and regulations making sure companies are top notch, but that's me. General protection and regulation. Uh, it's a regulation propagated by the European Union that sets strict requirements for how organizations handle and protect secure personal data and the EU citizens and residents. That's funny. That's funny coming from them as they try to backdoor Apple cloud services. So we have HIPAA. I'm sure some people might be familiar with this. This is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, US based official law to maintain sensitive data of health related information of citizens. Payment card industry data security standard. So that's that PCI. That's ensures secure handling, storage, and processing of cardholder data, merchants, blah, 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 blah. So a rule or law enforced by a government body to ensure compliance and protect against harm is called regulation. Got it. And the HIPAA targets which domain for data protection? Is that just health related? No. Targets which domain for. Oh, is it regulation? No. Probably compliance. Compliance. Okay. I can't spell. Oh, it's with an A. No? Oh, governance? Managing and directing organization or system to achieve its. Oh, because we're telling people how to handle certain information, I guess. What are we missing? Oh, shelf. Are you kidding me? I thought we put that in first. Oh, well. See, let's do. Yeah, yeah, excuse me. Um, let's have that play in the background. Information security frameworks. So the information security framework provides a comprehensive set of documents that outline the organization's approach to info security and governs how security is implemented, managed, and enforced within the org. So we have policies, standard guidelines, procedures, and baselines. I think that's pretty straightforward. Developing governance documents. We have identity and scope. Identify the scope and purpose. Determine what the document will cover and why it is needed. Research and review. Research relevant laws, regulations, standards, and best practices to ensure the document is comprehensive and up to date. Draft the document, develop an outline, start drafting the document, review and approval. Have the document reviewed by the stakeholders, such as subject matter experts, legal and compliance teams, and senior management. So that's just making sure, are we covering our legal butts? Is this a good enough policy governance document for the stakeholders, and can senior management approve of all this? So the implementation and communication. Communicate the document to all the relevant employees and stakeholders, ensure that they understand their roles and responsibilities in implementing it. Develop training and awareness programs to ensure the document is understood and followed. Review and update. Periodically review and update the document to ensure it remains relevant and practical. Monitor the compliance and adjust the document based on feedback and changes in the threat landscape or regulatory environment. So it's basically making sure, is our biggest threat still email phishing attacks? Do we make sure everyone agrees, hey, if you get a weird email, don't click on it? Do we have training that can help them review and stay on top of that? So let's try a real world scenario. Preparing a password policy. We define the requirements, the usage guideline, how passwords should be used, how unique they need to be, where we're storing the passwords and transmitting them, how do we change and reset them, communicating the policy to our employees and stakeholders, and making sure that everyone is compliant with that password policy. Say that's 6 times fast. So, making an incident response procedure. We have to define what incident types there are. There's unauthorized access, malware infections, database breaches. We can define the response roles and the responsibilities. So we identify the stakeholders, who's the response team, the IT personnel. We get legal involved, compliance teams, making sure we are up to standards, and senior management to approve everything. We have detailed steps, so a step-by-step procedure for responding to each type of incident, including the initial response steps, such as containing the incident, preserving evidence, blah, blah, blah. We report on this to management, document all the incident response process for future reference, communicate to the incident response procedures, and review and update as needed. Sound good? Okay. The step that involves monitoring compliance and adjust the document based on feedback and changes in the threat landscape or regulatory environment is called step that involves monitoring compliance and adjust the document based on feedback. Oh, probably communicate the policy, right? Nope. Review the policy? No. Review and approval, probably. No? Adjust the document based on feedback and changes in the threat landscape or regulatory environment. So, review and update. I hate how that's so simple. Ta-da! A set of specific steps for undertaking a particular task or process is called Set of steps. Undertaking a particular task or process is called what? Guidelines or procedures? I feel embarrassed. I should have known that one. So, as we have studied information security governance and compliance are necessary to maintain an org's overall security posture, how do we achieve it? Here are the roles of GRC, governance, and risk compliance framework. It focuses on steering the org, overall governance, enterprise risk management, and compliance in an integrated manner. So we have governance component, which involves guiding the org by setting its direction through information security, policies, standards, baselines, frameworks, etc. We have risk management component. We have compliance component. So making sure we meet legal, making sure we understand the risk of our assets. So it makes sense. How to develop a GRC program. Generic guidelines. We define the scope. We conduct a risk assessment, identifying all the risks, develop policies and procedures so we can have, a policy for how things are done and procedure to follow through, establish governance process. Governance process ensures that the GRC program is effectively managed and controlled. For example, an org might establish a security steering committee that meets regularly to review security risk and make decisions about security investments and priorities. We implement controls, adding different systems like the SIAM, firewalls, and such. We can monitor and measure performance, being able to get feedback from the GRC program so we can calculate all those beautiful, tasty metrics. We want to continuously improve, so it just never ends. And we improve based on the performance metrics and keep building on it and changing the risk profile and getting stakeholder feedback. An example of this framework in the financial sector. We have the governance-related activities. We nominate governance levels executive to make financial-related policies, such as the Bank's Secrecy Act, anti-money laundering policy, financial audit policies, and a bunch of other stuff. Risk management activities identify potential risks and their outcomes, countermeasures, financial fraud, and the compliance activities to take measure to meet legal requirements and industry standards. Moreover, this also includes implementing correct methods like SSL, TLS to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks. Banks need to be on top of their security. What is the component in the GRC framework involving identifying, accessing, and prioritizing risks to the organization? That's risk management. Is it possible to monitor and measure the performance of the developed policy? Yeah, probably. In every sector, such as financial, healthcare, governance, and industry, privacy and data protection regulations are critical as they deal with citizens' personally identifiable information. That's PII. You'll hear that all the time in the industry. How are you handling PII? So, privacy regulations help ensure individuals' personal information is handled and stored responsibly and ethically. Supposedly. So, general data protection regulation, implemented in the EU in 2018. Personal data is any data associated with the individual that can be utilized to identify them either directly or indirectly. This is interesting right now because of all the stuff that's going on in the EU. like I said, there's, you know, uh, people go into jail for what they say on social media. There's that whole thing with Apple and their encryption that they're using for their cloud services. So the EU wants access to all that information, but that breaks a lot of the stuff. So let's keep going. The law applies to all business entities that conduct business in the EU, collect, store, process personal information. It is one of the most stringent data privacy regulation worldwide and safeguards personal data during collections. Companies can only collect personal data for a legitimate reason and must inform the owner about its processing. Tier 1, more severe violations, including unintended data collection, sharing data with third parties without consent, maximum penalty amounting to 4% of the organization's revenue. Jeez. Less severe violations include data breaches, notifications, set policy, maximum is 2% of their revenue. That's crazy that they can just grab that. So, maximum 4%. In terms of PCI DSS, what does CHD stand for? Is it card holder data? Easy. All right, now we're getting into the NIST. So, NIST 853 is a publication titled Security and Privacy Controls for Information Security Systems and Organizations. Developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, provides a catalog of security controls to protect the CIA triad of information systems. That's not the CIA agency, CIA we were talking about before. Confidentiality, integrity, and access. So, key points. Offers comprehensive set of security controls for the org. We have administrative controls, technical controls, physical, and strategic. Planning, personal security, media protection, audit, accountability, awareness, training, blah, 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 blah. Sounds great. Developing and implementing NIST based on the Information Security Program. Among all families, program management is one of the crucial controls of the NIST framework. Program management control mandates establishing, implementing, and monitoring organization-wide programs for information security and privacy while safeguarding the process stored or transmitted through system. To ensure program management, the following sub-controls are necessary to be implemented. So we have system inventory, measure performance, enterprise architecture, critical infrastructure plan, offloading, privacy program, blah, blah, blah. Compliance best practices. First and foremost, business must conduct through discovery process to recognize catalog of their data assets, information systems, and associated threats. This includes understanding data flows, system dependencies, and potential vulnerabilities. The NIST 853 control families must be mapped to identified assets and hazards, making creating a standard approach for matching the controls of the organization's demands easier, supposedly. Thirdly, creating a governance structure, allocating duties, and outlining precise controls, implementing and maintenance procedures are all necessary to effectively manage the implementation process. All measures must be regularly monitored and evaluated to ensure compliance. Sounds like a bunch of hoopla. Per NIST 853, which control category does media protection lie? I believe physical control. All right. Got it. Per NIST 800-53, what control category does the incident response lie? Bueller? Bueller? Anybody? Anyone in chat want to take a guess? If you guessed administrative control, you'd be right. Which phrase, name of NIST 800-53 compliance best practices results in correlating identifying assets and permissions? So 3 letters. Is it just CIA? Nope. Compliance best practices result in correlating identifying access and permissions. Verifying identities and systems. Raise name of the NIST compliance. Oh, is it map? There we go. We're almost there, chat. We're 80% of the way through. The strategic planning, execution, and continuous administration of security measures are all part of information security management, which protects information assets from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, interruptions, alterations, and destruction. It involves risk assessment and identification, security controls, procedures development, incident response planning, and security awareness training. Contrarily, compliance refers to observing information security-related legal, regulatory, contractual, and industry-specific standards. In IS management and compliance, we will go through 2 key standards. ISO IEC 27001 is an internationally recognized standard for requirements to plan, develop, run, and update an organization's information security management system. The official ISO 27001 documents are paid for and can be purchased from this link. It was developed by International Organization for Standardization and the International Electronic Commission. It has following core concepts. We have scope, information security policy, risk assessment popping up again, risk treatment, statement of applicability, internal audit, and management reviews. Give you guys a second to take a look. Sure. All the benefits that come from this. An ISMS built on the ISO standard requires careful design and execution. It entails exhaustively evaluating the organization's security procedure and detecting gaps in conducting a thorough risk assessment. Access control, incident response, etc. are just a few examples of where clear rules and processes must be created to align with the ISO 27001 requirements. Leadership support and resource allocation are also essential for the ISMS to be implemented successfully. Regular monitoring, measurements, and continual development are crucial to guarantee the efficiency, efficacy, and continued alignment of the ISMS with the organization's objectives. We have Service Organization Controls. SOC 2 was developed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants as a compliance and auditing framework. Focuses on assessing efficacy of company data security based on the CIA triad. The framework is essential for providers interacting with client data or offering solutions that process, store, or transmit sensitive data. Important cardinals. SOC 2 is an auditing standard that evaluates the usefulness of services organization controls related to confidentiality, availability, integrity, and privacy. Bet you won't forget that one now. So, next one is independent auditors conduct SOC 2 audits, determine that security controls meet the relevant criteria. SOC 2 reports provide valuable information to customers, stakeholders, regulators, service orgs, blah, 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 blah. The SOC 2 audit report will access, control, and place at the cloud computing company and include any finding or recommendations for improvement. The information can be shared with customers and stakeholders to ensure company takes appropriate measures and protect its data and system. What information security protection SOC 2 provides? The primary purpose of the SOC 2 audits is to ensure that the third-party services provide, store, and process sensitive information securely. Planning on undergoing a SOC 2 audit? Well, we need to determine the scope, choose the suitable auditor, plan the audit, prepare for the audit, conduct it, and receive the audit report. So we are including security, availability, process integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. The above diagram shows generic controls that will be checked by SOC 2 audit for financial companies, which ISO IEC 2701 component involves selecting and implementing controls to reduce identified risk to an acceptable level. Risk? Oh, what's the word here? No. What are we looking for? There's treatment, maybe? Employing controls that reduce the identified risk to an acceptable level. Yep. In SOC 2, the generic controls, which control shows the system remains available. Availability? All right, that was pretty easy questions. All right, now for the fun one. This room has provided a comprehensive overview of importance of developing an effective information security governance and regulation framework to protect an organization's valuable assets and sensitive information. We have learned about various laws and regulations governing privacy and data protection, such as GDPR and PCI DSS. The room also introduced governance, risk management, and compliance framework concepts, and explained how to develop an effective GRC program through real-world scenarios. Thanks for the spam. Appreciate it. So, let's go ahead and hop into this fake site. All right. I've got to know you've got great aim. Please select a security control missile from the right side and aim at the corresponding vulnerability bubbles. Would you like a guided tour to learn more about how to get started? Nah, we're good. Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on, how do I aim the missile? Oh, okay. So, secure connection, SSL and TLS. Oh, okay. Okay, now I see. So we have phishing emails, unpatched software, unregulated, non-compliant data leakage, man-in-the-middle attack. So for phishing emails, we need to have automatic patch, SOC 2, GDLP. We should have user awareness. Which of the following is a valid NIST publication dealing with security and privacy controls for information systems and organization? 853. Bam. All right, so we have unpatched software, non-regulated, non-compliant. Automatic patch management. Which of the following frameworks primarily assist in information security management and compliance? Information security management and compliance. I'm thinking it's SOC 2 and GDPR. Let's try to SOC 2 it. There we go. Data leakage. Non-regulated, non-compliant. Ah, no. And we ran out of time. All right, let's try this again. User awareness. Which one did we say? I think it's 853. Boom. Unpatched software, automatic patching management. And then we can go ahead and say that that's SOC 2. And then we have non-compliant and unregulated. We have data leakage and man-in-the-middle attack. So a secure connection should help us deal with that. And then we have 2 left. We have SOC 2, boom, and GDPR. Got our flag. Them secure. Let's try TryHackMe secure. But another room in the books. All right. I think after that, I think we're good for now. Let's go ahead and wrap up the stream. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure to hit that follow button. Make sure to follow me on Twitch, YouTube, where you can like and subscribe things. Follow me on Twitter. I mean X. That's where you're going to see a lot of these updates when I'm streaming. Still working on a schedule for everybody, but you know, if you have any feedback, feel free to let me know. You know, send me a message or comment on this stream or video. All right. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys next time.